Okay, Derek, if you can give us your full name and where you were born and what you did as a youngster.
Derek Lemmens. I was born in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, and I was a pretty typical youngster. I liked to play G.I. Joes, He-Man, Army guys, and sports. You know, those were kind of the things that I filled my time with.
I know you have brothers and sisters. Tell us about them.
I have a younger brother, Nate. He's a basketball coach as well as I am, and my sister is a nurse at Lincoln Hills Juvenile Detention.
Okay.
She's older.
Yep. Now, you guys have all been associated with sports, and I know your dad and your mom were both very, very good athletes, and obviously they kind of got that mentality into you guys.
Yeah, sports was big for us growing up. We played everything. You know, that's kind of how we filled our time. Is we did a lot of things. Not just the three of us, but mom and dad were involved with that as well, and our friends all played sports. So you know, we really enjoyed, whether it was baseball, football, of course, basketball, anything. We even played hockey in the winter at times. You know, on the rink at times. So if we could compete in some way, we'd like to do it.
When you talk about competing, there's probably no two more competitive guys than you and your brother Nate. Tell us about how that was when you were younger.
We definitely competed. We used to have a little hoop in our room, and my dad would have to fix the door that it was hanging on quite frequently, because if you got close enough to the hoop to take a layup or a dunk, you were going to get hit. We made a makeshift basketball hoop for our trampoline, and we were always playing one-on-one, and I don't know how one of us didn't have a serious injury. But yeah, I mean, and believe it or not, I think my sister might even top the two of us when it comes to competitiveness. So, you know, it is very competitive family, but at the same time, we always were able to keep things in perspective.
Yep. Neither your mom or dad were in the service, correct?
No.
Okay. Grandfathers or grandmother?
Both of my grandfathers were in the Army. My grandpa Lemmens served in World War II, and he was in the Philippines. So my uncle was a big military guy, and he never served, but he was a collector, and he really made it very interesting to me as well. And his son, my cousin, who I was very close to, he's a major currently in the Army. So, you know, that family piece is kind of one of the things that made me interested in everything.
Yeah, tell us about that. How was it that you decided? Now you went into, was it the Army National Guard?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about how you came to make that decision to do that.
Well, I don't know what exactly it was about the military, but I was always intrigued by it. I always had kind of a plan of serving in some way, and you know, it starts when you're young. You know, things like G.I. Joes and the little green Army guys in my sandbox. Those things, I was always interested and engaged in those activities. Paintballing and just that type of mentality and mindset was just something interesting to me. And then the service piece, you know, you're a part of something that's bigger than you are. And so I had plans to do military, and I knew I would do it in some way. And as I got into high school, I was leaning more towards the full-time, but then as basketball started to just become the passion that it was, I realized that it'd be very difficult to do basketball in full-time, so that's what made me choose the National Guard.
Now, tell us exactly how it worked. If I remember right, you went into the National Guard first, and then after you were done, you went to UW-Stevens Point, is that, or did you do it at the same time?
I did it at the same time. So I had to start a year late because my basic training date got moved, and I had to do it in what would have been the fall of my freshman year. So I started late. So I was in basic training, and I got done in January, and then I had, instead of starting second semester, I just waited until that following year. But I was kind of doing the basketball, the school, and the Army all together. And actually 9/11 happened while I was at basic training, so that really took and changed everything, because when I originally joined, it was kind of that idea of doing all those things, and then as things started to change in the world, it really became impossible to be both an athlete and a soldier.
So you did spend some time overseas, correct? And did
Yes.
you do that like in the summer while you were off of school?
No, I got deployed in June of 2007. and I spent 1 year in Baghdad, Iraq.
Tell us about the first time you stepped off the plane going into Iraq and being in another country.
You know, it's just you do all the training. You're feeling confident going in. You're anxious. You've got a wide variety of feelings, especially just the unknown piece. You don't first deployment. I don't know what exactly this is gonna be. And when you first step on that ground and you feel the heat, you see around you, you see the poverty, the garbage, the remnants of what is currently a war. It really starts to become real, and you see like, okay, we're here, and that's just kind of the feeling that came over is, all right, we're here.
Did you have to face gunfire?
Yeah, we were there during the surge, so there was the conflict with Al Sadr and Jam at the time, and so we stayed plenty busy. And being a route clearance unit, it's really you're right there. You're out there looking for the IEDs and the threats that are hurting other soldiers. So really, our job was a lot of pressure, because if you miss something and you're not doing your job, not only could you hurt yourself, but you're putting other people in danger as well.
So, no, if I just want to make sure I got this right. So this happened while you were still in school at UW Stevens Point, so you had to take the time off, or did it happen after?
I took the time off, so I had to take a year off of school and then return to school after that.
And you were still part of the Guard, though, once you returned to school?
Actually, when I finished with my deployment, I had actually completed my 8 years.
Okay, so 8 years you were actually in there, okay.
Yeah.
When you did basic training, do you remember any of your boot camp drill instructors?
Yeah, I remember my lead instructor, Sergeant Silva. I remember him because he was the memory that sticks out to me is he was very intense, but he got mono in the middle of our basic training, and he used to always run with the A runners, which was the top running group. And I remember running, and he had been gone for a couple weeks, and he returned, and I remember him just refusing to run with anyone but the A and just staying with us. And I remember him running and coughing and throwing up and still not backing down and not letting up. And it was really, he played the part, and he said, this is what it takes. And I was always impressed with that he was willing to pay the price just to run in the A group. He had too much pride to let himself just even take a day off when he didn't need to.
It sounded like you pretty much had your mind made up about the Army, but were there any thoughts about Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, anything like that?
My sophomore year, I was pretty sure I was going to be a Marine. And then, like I said, the change in, I had always been more intrigued by the Army. I don't know where the Marines had suddenly, taken the lead, but as I looked and I decided I really wanted to do basketball, then I realized that Army was the best option, and so that's when I kind of shifted my thinking.
So you get out of the service. The very last day, do you remember what that was like?
There was just kind of a heavy burden, really, off of my shoulders, because, for those 8 years, like I said, when I was in basic, that's when 9/11 happened. So my entire time in the service, people were getting called up. I had been called up before that, but I had torn my knee in basketball actually 2 weeks before my unit was deployed. So I was not cleared to go. And then I was told probably about 2 or 3 other times that I was on a list and I need to plan to go, and nothing really went through. So I was just always feeling just, waiting for that call. And then I finally did get the orders towards the end of my deployment. And so then when it was done, there was just that you can finally be at ease and know that, you're not preparing to go there anymore. It's not going to happen.
Did you lose any of the individuals that were in your group at all while you were in the service?
We did.
How did that affect you?
Well, every time it happens, it brings back to reality, because sometimes you start to get comfortable a little bit, and so when those types of things happen, the motto there is complacency kills, and that really always just took you right back and reminded you how vulnerable you really can be.
You're out of the service. You finish up college at UW-Stevens Point. How did you like your basketball career there? Were you happy with what you were able to do?
I actually only had my 2 years at Marshfield. I had a 2-year school. That was it. I wanted to do Stevens Point, but like I said, with the way things were, I just couldn't make both basketball and the military work. I helped out coaching there, and I did as much as I could, but that's always going to be one of those things that I look back on with some level of regret, not being able to get my full 4 years in, because that was a big goal. But at the end of the day, I served my country, and so in the big picture, I can be proud of that.
You worked with Jack Bennett, who was also somebody that you were familiar with from being here
Yes.
in Rhinelander. How was that?
That was incredible. I looked up to him so much growing up, because up until I was in 8th grade, he was the head coach in Rhinelander. So all the youth programs, all the camps, basketball was Coach Bennett. And then when I go to school and I can continue to learn under him, to watch him, and be around him, that was really special. And I still to this day, think the world of him and stay in touch. And he's been a really big piece of my basketball career.
Let's take you back just for a second. We'll go back to high school. And you had Rich Fortier as your head coach.
Yes.
And Richie is Richie. Let's talk a little bit about how he was for a coach and how he kind of helped you build what your coaching is right now.
Really philosophy-wise, I think if I'm to say who do I coach the most like, it's probably Richie. And I like playing for Richie. He really is a unique individual, and he's been a great friend, and he's done a lot for me. After the fact, he's helped me get the jobs that I've gotten, and has always been there for me. And I've learned a good amount from Richie, and I don't know what it is, but the way he always coached, I liked that. I liked his style. I liked his philosophy, and I really think that I adapted that to my own beliefs, but I really probably took more from him that I use than anyone else.
As a basketball player, but just as someone who becomes a friend, you had a very, very close-knit group of individuals that you worked with in high school.
It was really a unique group. I think there were 9 of us, 9 seniors that year, and really all of us played, which is something that you don't see very often. And we were all okay with it, and we were all okay sharing time, because we all knew we were working. We all knew that each guy had paid the price, and we were happy for other people's successes, and it really turned into a pretty special team. And I still play with a lot of those guys. I just recently played with Mike Corpel again, and when we step on the court, it's just interesting. We haven't played together in a while, but you're just locked in with each other. You're sharing that same thought process, that same heartbeat, and it's crazy how that works. That friendship continues, and it all started through sports.
You got the opportunity to come to Rhinelander pretty much right away, right out of school, and you had to be happy about that. But tell us about what your time in the service did, and how it kind of worked over into what you're doing right now, and how basketball still plays a big part of that as well.
Well, I thought my time in the service just really changed me as a person. I think before the military, there were a lot of things that I needed to do better, and between confidence, self-image, pride, discipline, all those things, the military really took it to the level that it needed to be in order to be successful. And when you're wearing that uniform and you're expected to make that look immaculate, you're expected to every single time you can be seen, you're supposed to be looking a certain way and holding yourself to a high standard. That kind of becomes your mindset. And that mindset, I think, has really carried into the way I teach and the way I coach, and has really benefited me, because knowing that, you know, every time you go out on that court, or every time I'm preparing a lesson, you're holding yourself to a high standard, and the military is really what created that. And I think sports plays a role in that as well, where, you know, you talk about teamwork, you talk about selflessness. Military and sports both brought those two things to the forefront and showed, you know, how the no part is bigger than the whole. Mm-hmm. And that again is kind of my coaching philosophy, and really has helped guide me through my life up to this point.
Are you involved in anything like the American Legion or anything like that?
I haven't. I've been trying to possibly get involved in some of those things. Time is always an issue. You know, I mean, just in basketball alone, I'm a member. I have to be a member of the RBA and running tournaments and meetings. And then you look at the way school is, especially in Wisconsin now, that has changed drastically. And time is not a luxury. And then on top of that, having a 9-month-old and a toddler, and you know, so I would like to be involved in those things, but you know, I look back on my time, and I really like. I'm just at the next phase and of my life, and I don't. It's not an urgent thing for me.
Great, Derek. I want to thank you for your service, and I want to thank you for doing the interview.
Thanks a lot, John.